How we doing today, guys? It's Jesse with the Common Man Corpus Christi, bringing you news and politics through a common sense lens. So today, I've got a very special guest. So I've got Ron Mills. He's running for District 34, which is just south of us here in Corpus. He's running for Washington, D.C. Congress. So, Ron, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Good. All right. So, what made you want to run? What was kind of the deciding factor that made you want to run for District 34?
Well, I've been retired military and had been watching what was going on in politics for many years and involved in local government politics. And seeing what was happening in Washington and nothing getting better, only getting worse, I decided I couldn't sit back and watch it anymore. You know, you hear it all the time that people from service, they gave an oath that they were going to uphold the Constitution, and I don't think it's being upheld anymore. And I want to be able to step in and do something to help and try to get it back where it's supposed to be.
Awesome. That makes sense. What branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Coast Guard for almost 27 years.
Very nice. And so, being the fact that you're running for a more southern district, what are your feelings on the border and how that's going?
Well, the border issues are atrocious. You know, I actually used to patrol the river and do interdictions myself, both in narcotics and migrants, and you see what's happening today, and it's a disaster. Is the building a wall the only answer? No, it's not, but it's a part of the solution. There are other means and other processes that can be put back into place that were in effect in the past, and the Bracero Visa Project, for example, program that went on back from the 40s through the 60s and worked very well. Something of that nature could be instilled and make it to where people could come across the border and go back home.
Right.
The way it is now, they come across the border illegal, they're trapped here.
Right.
They can't go back home.
Because there's no way to pass
They
back and
can't
forth.
go back and forth.
Right.
And so, I mean, if you want to solve the problem of people not wanting to come here illegally and stay here indefinitely, let's fix it to where they can come and go as they need. So
very nice. So all right, so that's the border. So you've got you're going up for the Republican primary, right?
That's
right
correct.
now, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So you've got and you said you got 3 other opponents?
Well, there's actually currently 2 other opponents. There's a young lady by the name of Myra Flores, and then a gentleman by the name of Frank McCafferty. Both of them are running for the same position. I'm hoping that I can get the voters' attention on the fact that I have decades of experience. I tell everybody, for every one of these gray hairs, there's an experience factor that goes with it, and unfortunately the newcomers don't have much of that. Very limited life experiences and or work experiences. I've negotiated $25-30 million projects with the Corps of Engineers as a local bureaucrat and things of that nature, so I have decades of experience, and I'm hoping that's what people pay attention to.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit more. What's some of the more experiences you've had since the Coast Guard? What have you done since you got out of the Coast Guard?
Well, after I left the Coast Guard, I went in the private sector, and I was dismantled ships down in Brownsville on the ship channel for about 9 years. I was the vice president of one of the companies down there doing ship dismantling. And then from there, I went into local government, but as an appointed official or as an employee. I'm the port director at Port Mansfield, and that also makes me the general manager of their public utility department as well, and I also created a police department there because they didn't have one. Even though there's a community in Port Mansfield, they were dependent upon local sheriff's office to help them out, and so we've improved upon that to where we have our own police department. So I got a pretty wide spectrum of experience, and it's all real world stuff that people need every day. And it's something that, unfortunately for all of us, most congressmen don't have a clue about.
Right. So. Excellent. All right. So let's move on to schools. So there's always there's a lot of talk about like CRT and stuff like that nowadays. What are some of your feelings on schools, and like how since you're running for federal office, how do you feel the federal government should be involved in schools?
Well, I think the federal government should leave things to the local and state governments to run it, in my honest opinion. Whether we needed a national Department of Education or not is questionable. It was questionable when they created it, and it's always been questionable since it got started. It would be nice if they would accept their position of helping with funding and leaving it at that, not administration, and let the local and state governments decide what their people need to learn. I think that's where we need to go on that. This critical race theory is problematic for everybody. The way they've worded it and twisted it around, they can bury things into the curriculum now, and people don't even realize that that's what their intent was. It's much like our infrastructure bill and how they hid all this green energy stuff in there by calling it something else. It's the same things happening in the schools. They create these programs, they bury them underneath all these other layers of information, and are able to sneak it in that way. So I think that's a big concern. I do personally have a special pet project in the education system, but it has to do with special education.
Gotcha.
I believe special education is an abysmal failure in the whole United States, from the top down, federally, locally, state. It's a horrible situation. And I have firsthand experience working as a volunteer with an organization that assisted young adults who had been through the whole system until they were booted out when they turned 21 years old.
Right.
And then that's when you find how big the problem is. It's when they reach 21 years old and there's no more systems in place to help them.
Right.
And so if we could help them when they're in school to be better prepared for life, that would make things better for them and for their families and for the whole country.
Well, and I think that you bring up a good point with like the mental health crisis in the United States. That's one of the biggest issues I think we have. It's like, and obviously this was a little before my time, but my understanding was Reagan basically abolished like all the institutions, like all the mental hospitals and stuff, the state-run mental hospitals.
Right.
And so now you have these people that, like you said, once they hit a certain age, they basically get booted from the programs, and there's nowhere for them to go. And I mean, now you see, that's one of those things. Now you see where it's like, now you've got like all these homeless that we're dealing with out on the street, and trust me, they come in here.
Right.
So it's one of those things, 90% of them, they have mental issues. They're not all just drug addicts and stuff like that. That might be a factor of it, but a lot of them, they've got mental issues, and then drugs just factor into that and make it even worse, and there's nowhere for them to go.
Correct. Yeah. Ever since the system's closed down, there's no such thing as a state home anymore,
right,
or anything of that, or any other type of institution to help them to bridge that gap. That wasn't necessarily the answer either. I mean, you don't want to abandon somebody into an institution and leave them there for their entire life.
Right.
But to have a program that allows, even if it's a local schools, to integrate learning processes, not put kids into a classroom and close the door and they come out 12, 15 years later.
Right.
And it's 15 years later because they get to stay till they're 21. So when they're 18, when they would normally graduate, no, they just keep it going for a couple more years. And then when they turn 21, it's adios. Have a nice life.
And there's nothing.
And there's nothing for them.
Right.
So if they didn't pick it up and they're not given the opportunities to pick it up, then that's it. And now the parents are they have some monetary offset from the government.
Right, but it's
not what they need. What happens when mom and dad are now gone?
Right.
Then what happens to those people? Then they're the ones you're talking about you find on the street that are trying to survive.
Yeah, I've got a really good friend of mine up in San Antonio. One of his sons is special needs, and he'll be living with mom and dad for the rest of his life.
Correct.
And that is definitely something to be worried about because of what's going to happen to him when mom and dad die. Because his dad's definitely not getting any younger. That's for sure.
Right.
So that's good. I'm glad that you like the concentration on the mental health stuff. That's really, really great. Let's see, what is there anything else you want to talk about? We've got a couple of minutes left. Yeah. Oh, term limits. Yeah, yes. I know you. Yeah, we were talking about that before we started. So, what are some of your views and opinions on the term limits issue?
Well, I'm a strong believer in term limits, and as you and I were discussing before the start, if everybody that puts an R at the end of their name, they sign on to the party platform, and the party platform says you have to believe in term limits. You have to sign on to the fact that you're going to ask for term limits, but nobody's doing that.
Right.
Because it's inconvenient, unfortunately, for all of them, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. It's not comfortable then. I don't have any problem pushing that forward because I'm of an age, I'm not going to be in D.C. more than about 6-7 years anyway.
Right.
I'm done. I'm out of there. I'm not going to spend my golden years in Washington, D.C. of all places.
Right.
And so I have no problem pushing forward any measures that have to do with term limits. Is there a need for term limits? Absolutely. I mean, any job in the government and even in the military, there's time limits. You can only be there just a certain amount of time. If you're going to limit the president and not let them running beyond a certain time period, which they've done, and I agree with what they've done, then they should do the same thing for themselves. Yeah. Here they're already starting to talk about, let's do this to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Well, look, why do you try to regulate everybody but yourself?
Right.
So I think term limits are essential, and because of the fact that I'm going up there a little older, and a little more experience, I have no problem saying, "Hey, boys and girls, let's vote on a measure that limits how long you can stay here."
That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, and that's one of the things I think you touched on it to a certain degree. There's a lot of guys that will put an R next to their name and sign off on the party platform and don't actually believe in a lot of the pillars.
That's correct.
You know, because school choice has been a pillar. School choice has been a pillar in Texas forever.
Right.
Right. And we've had complete and total control of the House, the Senate, and the governorship for almost over a decade,
Right.
and it's still not done.
That's right.
So we've got a lot of. So that's one of the. I guess basically what I'm asking you is you're one of those that's actually running to actually get things done and not just go sit in the seat.
That's correct. That's the only reason I'm going up there. I did not prepare my life to be a politician.
Right.
I spent my life trying to serve my community. I have been serving my community since I was 17 years old. Actually, before that, I was a Boy Scout, so I've always been serving my community.
Very nice.
And I'm not trying to do this to make any better improvements on my own self. I'm ready to go. I could retire within the next 3 or 4 years and call it done. But that's not what the country needs right now.
Right.
I think it needs more people to come home and that are willing to make a difference and are willing to make noise and take care of business.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, that sounds great. All right, Ron, if people want to find out any more information or maybe donate to your campaign or something like that, where can they go? Where can they find you?
Ronald Mills for FOR Congress.com is our website. There's a donation link there for helping out with donations, and obviously anytime you're dealing with campaigning, donations are essential. I've never been in a job in my life where I ever had to ask for anything, so it's kind of awkward for myself and my team. But reality is we need donations to help us out. So RonaldMillsForCongress.com is our website, and we also have Facebook. Is also Ronald Mills for Congress. It's also going to be found under Ronald Mills in general on Facebook.
Nice, very nice. And when's the primary? Do you know?
The primary is in March. I don't know the exact date yet. So after March, then we have to deal with our Democratic opponent, who is currently a congressman in a different district, who's decided he wants to run in our district now. So
right, awesome. All right, well, Ronald, I appreciate you coming in. It was great having you. All right, guys, this is Jesse with the Common Man, Corpus Christi. Get out there if you live if you live south of us in Texas 34 in District 34. Make sure you go out there and support Ron Mills in his primary, so that way we can get him to Congress. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.